Hi, Maria. I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. Such a pleasure to be able to speak to you. Maybe you could kick off with an introduction to this incredible, poignant and sort of emotional roller coaster of a film, Hope.
Oh, yeah, it is my most autobiographical work ever, almost, shamelessly so. It started out with, it's my own story of getting cancer and getting 3 months to live. And then 3 years afterwards, I was still alive. And so that was cancelled. So I ended up writing this story, which I hope is personal and not a private story.
Mm-hmm. And obviously, trying to tell a story that's so personal, so autobiographical, must be both challenging, but perhaps also cathartic. So what made you decide to turn this into a film, and what was that process like for you as an individual?
Actually, initially, I really didn't want to make this movie because I thought it I was so afraid that it would become something like a, American cancer movie, very sentimental, So the first thing I had to do was to just figure out how to get there to something which was rang very true. So I interviewed all my kids, 6 of them, step and biological children, and my husband, and trying to find, who was I at this stage, which is like a 10 days story. And I was on full, steroids, medicine, medications, didn't sleep more than 3 hours per night. So how did they remember me? So it's about working with memories and going backwards and, looking at yourself, thinking like, did I say that? Did I do that? And looking for the experiences which were painfully embarrassing and ugly as well. And I realized that there's a lot of comedy in this situation because you're so self-absorbed in when you're gonna die. So it's like finding the tone of voice which also capture that. The absurd situations at the same time as it's a love story with cancer in it. In a way, it's not about death, it's about life, it's about how you live your lives and decisions you make, and a portrait of a couple's 20 years together told in a Christmas week.
And of course, I think because it's come from your own experiences, there's so much nuance right there in the writing, but it's also, very much to the credit of the actors that you've been able, and to your direction, that they've been able to bring out that nuance as well. And the kids are all fantastic, but in particular, Andrea and Stellan, give such incredible performances. How did you know these 2 actors were right for your main cast, and how did you work with them to make sure that nuance was captured?
When I wrote it, I never thought about actors because I had no idea if I was going to be able to make this movie, because I was not well at this stage when writing. So when I reached a script which I felt was ready for, which was it was my story, but it was fiction, and it was a story. Then Stellan, who is also a friend of mine and a family friend, there was no doubt it had to be him, because his part has so few lines, and I know nobody who's got so much inner life on the screen than him. And also he knew very well the situation from his own life. because his own wife, ex-wife, had cancer, and he has tons of kids, etc. So he could make it he could make it his own. And he's very unsentimental, which was key for the actors I was going to play together with and make this come alive. And Andrea, I did really not know who she would be. And I wanted it to be somebody who was very unlike myself, so that I could, so I could forget myself and they could forget me. So I did a huge casting session, and she was just there. And I think together with Stellan, she's a great comedy actress as well, which I think is very good for this part, because it's about not being heavy and not being, we laughed a lot on set. We, she has that capacity, which I think was crucial to the part she has. She's in every frame. I mean, she carries the whole movie, and Stellan is there looking at her doing so. And as for the kids and all the doctors, etc., they're amateurs. So that's been one of the challenges, and also qualities, I think, to the project, that it's a mix of very trained actors and these doctors who are doctors in real life. So when we were shooting at the hospitals, it was, the roles were, swapped. The doctors were the pros and the actors were the amateurs. So it's, and since I have been so much in and out of hospitals, I've been studying, doctors, who they are, because they're human beings and they've had a bad day and they're going to deliver the worst, message, oncologists, etc. So I think that brings something very true to the story, the way they deliver.
And sorry.
Yeah.
And I think it's so interesting that you say that it is both a love story, but there's also comedy, because I think what's so fascinating about it is there's this constant push and pull, particularly between your two main characters. And I think at different moments we sympathize with different sides. At the beginning, we sort of feel very much behind her, and that he seems very insensitive and distant, but then it flips once again, and you sort of feel that, he's obviously suffering, but in just a different way and very quietly. So it's all those small moments that we see different dynamics unfolding. And was that something very important to you, to kind of give all the different perspectives, so we kind of change from which viewpoint we're looking at things at different moments?
Yes, I think we, I did never rehearse before shooting. We talked and talked and talked for weeks together, Stellan and Andrea and myself, to get, it's about having the intimacy between us, so that you dare to do things on set and play. So it was like, for one scene we could make 10 different angles just to play around the possibilities of this, and then ending up very often with no crying, something very dry. But we had a lot of wet scenes, in the sense that it was Andrea, she as an actress and as a private person, she easily takes to tears. So we would start out with her version and her take on it, and lots of tears always. And then I said, and then we have to have a dry take. And we had that dry take, and that was the take we actually ended up with most of the time. Mm. So to get those nuances is all about sort of researching what's in the situation and what's the possibilities of digging into something you didn't know was there, and shame. Shame was a key word. all these situations where you feel shame without, I mean, there doesn't have to be a reason for it, but I mean, she felt shame because she had cancer, all these things, which is irrational, to find those irrational things. And I think that having experienced, the fact that you are going to die and there's no hope actually, then you dare to say so many things which you would never have dared to tell your partner or your surroundings. And that was a thrill to work with, because I mean, she could be so upfront and so direct, which is it's horrible and very, very funny and very painful with somebody who's so direct, because she's going to die and she's on steroids. So that combination was something very fertile for the story, I think, and it gives an engine to a story. And I think if when I said I was really, I was very scared that it could become a sentimental cancer movie, which I think often is like, you get the feeling that somebody has, decided, I want to make a story about something, the worst thing that can happen to a person, and I have to sort of use my fantasy to find out how would that be, and you write this. When it's something you have actually lived, it's amazing which thoughts goes through your head, and it's so individual. And you don't then you don't get those cliches. If you dare to go for the truth, And while writing this story, I worked for 6 months making, writing shit, and then I just realized I had to really, really, really go in there and remember those feelings which were almost too shameful for myself to acknowledge. And then it was fun. Never thinking about audience or what anyone would say.
And now the film is complete. What do you hope that people will take away from it and for its future trajectory? Because I guess it's not the kind of thing you plan, but going forward to be Norway's Oscar submission, and I believe even Nicole Kidman has had interest in turning it into a series. So had you ever expected that it would be really sort of hitting home with people in the way it has, and what do you hope that impact will be going forward?
I think, as I said, I never thought about audience in this particular film, because it had so many other meanings to me. If I was able to work again, so it's just been a very nice ride, in the sense that I think it's so specific, local in the story, in a way that it becomes very universal. It has emotions which anyone can relate to, although you have not been into this sort of traumatic situation. And I think what I have taken away in meeting with audiences, I think they very much think about, go home and think about their own lives, decisions they have made and not made. So it's not a moralistic story. It's more about how you do live your lives, and there's no right and wrong, but it's just very, very particular in that sense.
And do you already know what film you might be working on next, or are you going to kind of let this one sink in, the dust settle, and then see what you're going to do next?
I'm actually writing the second draft of the new project, but it's not a cancer movie, but it is a tragedy with an absurdist eye. I don't want to say anything more about it. I want to keep it tight for some more time, but it's a Danish project, and everything is happening in Greece, 2015. Yeah.
All right, wonderful. Well, I think I'm out of time, but thank you so much for sharing all that with me, and best of luck with this film and your future projects. Thanks so much.
Thank you as well.